What if everything we thought we knew about our past was wrong? Deep within the uncharted regions of a distant planet lies a mystery that defies explanation. An advanced civilization, once thriving, vanished without a trace, leaving behind only cryptic artifacts and haunting questions. Who were they? What happened to them? And why do their relics seem to whisper warnings to those who dare uncover their secrets? Join us as we embark on a journey through time, space, and human curiosity, where answers may come at a price too great to bear. Don't miss this mind-bending exploration of history's greatest enigma. Subscribe now for more thrilling adventures into the unknown. In the year 2347, humanity had reached the zenith of its technological prowess. Space travel was no longer a novelty but a routine endeavor, with exploratory missions stretching across galaxies in search of new worlds and untold riches. Yet nothing could have prepared the crew of the Astrius Dash, a state-of-the-art research vessel, for what they stumbled upon during their survey of Kepler 62f, a planet shrouded in perpetual twilight due to its unique orbit around two suns. The initial scans revealed something extraordinary: massive structures buried beneath layers of sedimentary rock. These weren't natural formations, they bore unmistakable signs of intelligent design. Towering spires, intricate carvings, and geometric patterns etched into stone hinted at a civilization far older than any previously discovered. The team was ecstatic. They named it Arinder, after an ancient mythological city said to sink beneath waves when greed consumed its people. Little did they know how prophetic that name would become. As excavation began, the true scale of the discovery became apparent. Entire cities lay hidden beneath the surface, connected by sprawling networks of tunnels and bridges. Buildings crafted from materials unknown to modern science gleamed faintly even under artificial light. But there were no bodies, no remnants of life, not even skeletal remains or fossilized traces. It was as though the inhabitants had simply walked away, leaving everything behind. What struck the researchers most, however, were the artifacts scattered throughout the ruins. Devices resembling tablets emitted soft pulses of energy when touched, but their purpose remained elusive. Strange symbols covered every surface, forming patterns that seemed almost alive, shifting slightly depending on the angle of observation. Some believed these markings were a form of writing, while others argued they represented mathematical equations beyond human comprehension. Whatever their meaning, one thing was clear: whoever created them possessed knowledge far surpassing anything Earth had achieved. Yet unease lingered among the crew. There was an oppressive stillness in the air, a sense that they were being watched despite the absence of life. Every step deeper into Arinder felt like trespassing, not just on alien territory, but on sacred ground. Questions swirled in their minds. Why had such brilliance been abandoned? Where had the builders gone? And why did the very walls seem to hum with anticipation whenever someone ventured too close? Further exploration unveiled a society frozen in time, suspended between epochs of progress and ruin. The architecture suggested a culture deeply attuned to harmony, blending functionality with aesthetics in ways that left the researchers awestruck. Transparent domes encased lush gardens, preserved perfectly despite millennia passing. Fountains stood dry, their basins cracked yet intact, as if waiting patiently for water to flow again. Libraries filled with crystalline discs hinted at vast repositories of knowledge, though decoding them proved impossible with existing technology. One artifact, in particular, captivated the team's attention: a sphere roughly the size of a human head, made from a material that defied analysis. Its surface shimmered with iridescent hues, changing color based on proximity to other objects. When activated, it projected holographic images of celestial bodies moving in complex orbits, accompanied by a low-frequency hum that resonated deep within the chest. Scientists theorized it might serve as both a map and a calendar, charting not only planetary alignments but cosmic events spanning eons. But alongside evidence of ingenuity lay ominous clues suggesting catastrophe. In certain areas, buildings appeared scorched, their exteriors blackened as though subjected to extreme heat. Fragments of machinery showed signs of violent destruction, twisted metal fused together in jagged shapes. Most disturbing were the murals adorning the walls of grand halls. Scenes depicting prosperity and innovation gave way to depictions of chaos, mass exodus, skies ablaze, figures fleeing shadowy entities that loomed over them like specters of doom. Despite these harbingers of calamity, no definitive proof of warfare or environmental collapse emerged. No craters marred the landscape, nor did geological records indicate volcanic eruptions or asteroid impacts. Radiation levels remained normal, ruling out nuclear annihilation. Instead, the disappearance seemed deliberate, orderly even. Doors were sealed shut, belongings neatly arranged, and power sources deactivated. It was as though the inhabitants had chosen to leave, abandoning their world for reasons known only to themselves. This paradox gnawed at the researchers. How could a civilization so advanced vanish without leaving a single clue as to their fate? Were they victims of forces beyond mortal understanding? Or had they transcended physical existence entirely? Each new revelation raised more questions than answers, drawing the team further into the labyrinth and mystery of Arinder. As days turned into weeks, the crew grew increasingly obsessed with unraveling the secrets of Arinder. Their instruments recorded strange anomalies, fluctuations in electromagnetic fields, bursts of static interrupting communications, and inexplicable temperature changes within confined spaces. At first, these disturbances were dismissed as equipment malfunctions caused by the planet's erratic environment. However, patterns soon emerged that defied conventional explanation. During one particularly eerie night shift, Dr. Alarivas, the lead archaeologist, noticed something peculiar. As she examined a mural depicting the shadowy figures, her flashlight flickered erratically, casting distorted shadows across the wall. She swore she saw movement in the periphery of her vision, fleeting glimpses of shapes darting just out of sight. When she called out to her colleagues, they found nothing amiss, attributing her account to fatigue and stress. But similar reports began surfacing among the team, unexplained noises echoing through empty corridors, phantom touches brushing against skin, and dreams plagued by recurring visions of the same ominous figures. These phenomena escalated when researchers attempted to interact directly with the artifacts. Touching certain devices triggered vivid hallucinations, transporting individuals to surreal landscapes where reality bent and fractured. One scientist described standing on the edge of a vast ocean, staring up at twin suns locked in an eternal dance. Another recounted wandering through endless forests where trees whispered secrets in languages long forgotten. While none suffered permanent harm, each experience left them shaken, questioning whether the line between perception and reality had blurred irreparably. Some speculated that the artifacts acted as conduits, channeling residual energies from the vanished civilization. Others proposed a darker theory, that the creators had embedded safeguards within their creations, designed to deter intruders or punish those who tampered with forbidden knowledge. Regardless of the cause, it became evident that Arinder held dangers beyond mere intellectual challenge. The deeper they delved, the stronger the feeling grew that they were unwelcome guests, trespassing on hallowed ground best left undisturbed. Desperate to make sense of the enigmatic symbols covering nearly every surface, linguists and cryptographers launched a concentrated effort to decode the language of Arinder. Unlike terrestrial scripts, which relied on linear arrangements of characters, these markings flowed organically, intertwining in spirals and fractals that seemed to shift subtly when observed from different angles. Early attempts to categorize them using traditional methods yielded little success, leading some to believe they represented abstract concepts rather than concrete words. Then came the breakthrough. By combining spectrographic analysis with quantum computing, researchers identified repeating sequences corresponding to specific wavelengths of light. When translated into audible frequencies, these patterns produced harmonious tones reminiscent of music. More astonishingly, variations in pitch and rhythm appeared linked to emotional states, suggesting the language operated on multiple sensory levels simultaneously. This revelation opened new avenues of investigation. Could the symbols encode not only information but also experiences? If so, perhaps interacting with the artifacts required more than intellectual engagement, it demanded immersion on a visceral level. Armed with this hypothesis, the team devised experiments involving synchronized exposure to visual projections and soundscapes generated by the artifacts. The results were transformative. Participants reported heightened awareness, as though memories long dormant stirred awake. Images flooded their minds, vivid snapshots of bustling cities bathed in golden light, festivals celebrating celestial events, and rituals conducted beneath starlit skies. Through these fragmented visions, pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. They learned that the civilization referred to themselves as the Luminari, translating loosely to children of light. Their society revolved around harnessing and manipulating energy derived from stellar phenomena, believing themselves stewards of universal balance. Artifacts served dual purposes, functioning as tools for daily life and conduits for spiritual enlightenment. However, amidst these revelations lurked darker truths. References to a cataclysmic event, the eclipse of eternity, hinted at internal strife and betrayal. Shadows crept into the narratives, symbolizing corruption and loss of faith. With each session, the boundary between observer and participant blurred further. The Luminari story unfolded like a tapestry woven from threads of brilliance and despair, offering glimpses of a destiny intertwined with cosmic forces. Yet the central question persisted: what ultimately drove them to abandon their home, and why had their legacy endured for millennia untouched? The phrase, eclipse of eternity, became a focal point for the researchers as they pieced together fragments of the Luminaries' history. It appeared repeatedly in their decoded narratives, always accompanied by ominous imagery, shadows swallowing light, skies fractured into shards, and figures consumed by voids. The term seemed to mark a turning point, an event so catastrophic that it shattered the very fabric of their society. Through painstaking analysis of the artifacts, the team reconstructed what they believed to be the sequence of events leading up to this cataclysm. The Luminari had achieved unparalleled mastery over stellar energy, harnessing it not only for technological advancement but also for spiritual transcendence. They viewed themselves as intermediaries between the cosmos and the material world, tasked with maintaining harmony across dimensions. However, their ambition proved insatiable. In their quest to unlock the secrets of creation itself, they delved into forbidden knowledge, attempting to manipulate forces beyond mortal control. One artifact, a crystalline tablet etched with swirling patterns, depicted a ritual conducted during a rare celestial alignment. The researchers theorized that this event acted as a catalyst, triggering unforeseen consequences. According to their interpretations, the Luminari sought to amplify their connection to the stars, channeling vast amounts of energy through their network of spires. But instead of achieving enlightenment, they inadvertently opened a rift, a tear in reality that allowed something alien and malevolent to seep into their world. The murals told the rest of the story. What emerged from the rift was neither fully physical nor entirely ethereal. It existed somewhere in between, feeding on fear and chaos. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, consuming entire cities. The once vibrant civilization descended into panic as their leaders struggled to contain the entity. Yet every attempt to combat it only fueled its power, spreading darkness further. Eventually, the Luminari faced an impossible choice: remain and fight, risking total annihilation, or flee, abandoning their home in hopes of survival elsewhere. What happened next remained unclear. Some researchers speculated that the survivors embarked on a mass exodus, using their advanced technology to escape the planet before the entity could consume them entirely. Others believed they had transcended physical form, leaving behind their corporeal bodies to merge with the cosmos. Either way, the absence of any trace of life suggested a deliberate decision to sever ties with their past, and perhaps a warning to future generations who might follow in their footsteps. As the team continued their investigations, they began to suspect that the artifacts were more than mere relics. Each object seemed imbued with a consciousness, responding subtly to human presence. Devices pulsed faintly when touched, emitting low-frequency vibrations that resonated with emotions rather than logic. Crystalline discs shimmered with iridescent colors, projecting holograms that shifted based on the viewer's state of mind. Even the symbols carved into stone appeared alive, rearranging themselves imperceptibly depending on perspective. This realization sparked both fascination and unease. On one hand, these sentient artifacts offered unprecedented access to the Luminaries' knowledge and culture. On the other, they posed significant risks. Several researchers reported experiencing vivid hallucinations after prolonged exposure, describing encounters with shadowy entities identical to those depicted in the murals. Others claimed to hear whispers in languages they couldn't understand, voices urging them to perform actions against their will. Dr. Alaravas, driven by curiosity and a desire to uncover the truth, volunteered herself as a test subject for deeper interaction with the artifacts. Using neural interfaces designed to synchronize brain activity with external stimuli, she connected directly to the pulsating orb discovered earlier. Instantly, her consciousness was flooded with sensations too intense to describe. She saw visions of the Luminari at the height of their glory, cities bathed in radiant light, festivals celebrating cosmic alignments, and rituals performed beneath starlit skies. But these moments of beauty quickly gave way to terror. Alara found herself standing in the midst of the eclipse of eternity. Shadows writhed around her, forming grotesque shapes that lunged forward only to dissolve into smoke. A cacophony of screams filled the air, mingling with the sound of shattering glass. Overhead, the twin suns darkened, plunging the world into eternal night. Panic surged within her as she realized she wasn't merely observing the event, she was living it. When she finally broke free from the connection, gasping for breath, her colleagues rushed to her side. Her eyes were wide with shock, her hands trembling uncontrollably. "It's still here," she whispered hoarsely. "Whatever destroyed them, it's still here." Alara's warning sent ripples of fear through the crew. If the entity responsible for the Luminary's downfall still lingered, then their presence might awaken it. Yet abandoning the mission felt equally unthinkable. They had come too far, uncovered too much, to turn back now. Instead, they doubled down on their efforts, determined to find answers before it was too late. Their focus shifted toward understanding the nature of the shadowy force. Was it a sentient being, a manifestation of corrupted energy, or something else entirely? To answer this question, they turned to quantum simulations, modeling the interactions between the artifacts and the ambient energies permeating the ruins. What they discovered defied conventional physics. The shadows behaved like self-replicating algorithms, propagating through dimensional rifts created by the Luminary's experiments. Unlike traditional matter, which adhered to fixed laws of causality, these entities operated outside linear time. They fed on entropy, thriving in environments marked by decay and disorder. Worse still, they exhibited predatory instincts, targeting sources of coherent thought and emotion, the very essence of sentient life. This revelation shed new light on the Luminary's fate. Their attempts to master stellar energy had inadvertently unleashed a parasite capable of consuming entire civilizations. The murals depicting mass exodus took on grim significance, suggesting that those who fled may have carried fragments of the entity with them, spreading corruption across the galaxy. Yet amidst the despair, a glimmer of hope emerged. Embedded within certain artifacts were countermeasures, patterns designed to disrupt the shadow's propagation. These safeguards manifested as intricate geometric designs, pulsing with frequencies that interfered with the entity's ability to replicate. By replicating these patterns and amplifying their effects, the researchers hoped to neutralize the threat, or at least buy enough time to escape. But implementing this solution required accessing the central spire, believed to house the primary node of the Luminary's energy network. Reaching it meant navigating treacherous terrain littered with dormant artifacts and traversing tunnels haunted by echoes of the past. Every step closer brought them nearer to salvation or doom. The journey to the central spire tested the limits of endurance and sanity. As the team ventured deeper into the labyrinthine ruins, the oppressive atmosphere intensified. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting into grotesque forms that mimicked their movements. Whispers grew louder, overlapping in a cacophony of voices speaking in tongues long forgotten. Even the air felt heavier, laden with an invisible weight that pressed down upon their chests. Despite these challenges, they pressed onward, guided by a combination of determination and desperation. Portable scanners detected increasing concentrations of anomalous energy emanating from the spire, confirming its role as the nexus of the Luminary's network. Along the way, they encountered chambers filled with dormant artifacts, each pulsing faintly as though waiting to be reactivated. Touching them triggered brief flashes of insight, glimpses of the Luminary's daily lives, their triumphs and tragedies, but also heightened the sense of being watched. At one point, the team stumbled upon a chamber unlike any they had seen before. Its walls were covered in luminescent veins that pulsed rhythmically, casting eerie shadows across the floor. In the center stood a pedestal adorned with the same geometric patterns identified as countermeasures against the shadows. When activated, the pedestal emitted a soft hum, creating a protective field that repelled the encroaching darkness. For the first time since arriving on Arinder, the researchers felt a semblance of safety. However, their respite was short-lived. Moments later, the ground trembled violently, sending shards of stone raining down from above. A deep, guttural roar reverberated through the chamber, followed by the sound of something massive moving in the distance. Whatever slumbered beneath the surface had awakened, drawn by their intrusion. With no time to waste, the team gathered what supplies they could carry and resumed their trek toward the spire, knowing full well that failure meant certain death. Reaching the central spire proved to be both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Towering hundreds of meters above the surrounding ruins, its crystalline structure refracted light in dazzling displays, casting rainbows across the twilight sky. Yet beneath its beauty lay an aura of menace, as if the spire itself were aware of their approach and disapproved. Inside, the air crackled with raw energy. Conduits lined the walls, glowing faintly as though charged with latent power. At the heart of the structure lay a massive console, its surface covered in familiar geometric patterns. Surrounding it were holographic projections of celestial bodies, their orbits disrupted by chaotic fluctuations. The researchers recognized this as the epicenter of the luminaries' energy network, the source of their brilliance and, ultimately, their downfall. Activating the console required precise synchronization of multiple frequencies, a task made infinitely more difficult by the growing instability of the environment. Shadows coalesced into tangible forms, lashing out at anyone who strayed too close. Instruments malfunctioned, readings fluctuated wildly, and communication devices emitted bursts of static. Despite these obstacles, the team worked tirelessly, guided by Dr. Voss's unwavering resolve. Finally, after hours of painstaking effort, they succeeded. The console roared to life, bathing the chamber in blinding light. For a moment, everything seemed frozen. The shadows paused mid-motion, the tremors ceased, and an eerie silence enveloped the room. Then, with a deafening crash, the spire unleashed a pulse of energy that rippled outward, disrupting the dimensional rifts sustaining the shadows. One by one, the entities dissolved into nothingness, their cries fading into oblivion. But victory came at a cost. The spire began to collapse, its structural integrity compromised by the surge of power. With no time to spare, the team scrambled to evacuate, narrowly escaping as the ancient edifice crumbled behind them. The pulse emitted by the central spire had neutralized the shadows, but the cost was far greater than anyone anticipated. As the team stumbled out of the collapsing structure, they were met with an unsettling sight. The ruins of Arinder, once vibrant and humming with residual energy, now lay lifeless and barren. The artifacts that had pulsed with light and consciousness were dark and inert, their essence extinguished in the wake of the spire's final act. Dr. Alara Voss stood at the edge of what remained, her face etched with a mixture of relief and sorrow. She had dedicated months to understanding the Luminari, unraveling their language, deciphering their symbols, and piecing together their history. Yet now, standing amidst the silent remnants of their civilization, she felt an overwhelming sense of loss. It wasn't just the physical destruction of the spire or the artifacts, it was the erasure of a culture, a people who had dared to reach for the stars only to be consumed by their own ambition. As the team regrouped and prepared for departure, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had played a part in this tragedy. By activating the spire, they had effectively sealed the fate of Arinder, rendering it a tomb rather than a testament to ingenuity. Had they made the right choice? Was it worth sacrificing the last vestiges of the Luminari's legacy to ensure their own survival? These questions weighed heavily on them as they boarded the Astrius Dash, leaving behind the desolate landscape that had once been a beacon of hope and wonder. Back aboard the ship, the crew struggled to process what they had witnessed. Despite the absence of the shadows, their presence lingered in subtler ways. Members of the team reported vivid dreams filled with fragmented memories, not their own, but those of the Luminari. They saw flashes of golden cities bathed in sunlight, heard echoes of laughter and song, and felt the warmth of a society united by purpose. But these moments of beauty were always followed by darkness, the creeping shadows, the screams of panic, and the suffocating weight of despair. These visions weren't random, they seemed to carry a message, a plea from the past. The Luminari hadn't merely vanished, they had left behind fragments of themselves, embedded in the artifacts and encoded within the very fabric of Arinder. Even after the spire's collapse, these echoes persisted, whispering warnings to those who would listen. Dr. Voss became particularly attuned to these messages. Her connection to the pulsating orb during her earlier experiments appeared to have forged a bond between her consciousness and the remnants of the Luminari. She began experiencing lucid dreams that felt more like memories, each one revealing new details about their downfall. Through these visions, she pieced together a harrowing truth. The eclipse of eternity hadn't been an isolated event. It was the culmination of centuries of hubris, a slow unraveling fueled by humanity's oldest flaw, greed. The Luminari had sought to transcend their limitations, to become gods among mortals. But in doing so, they had lost sight of the balance they were meant to uphold. Their pursuit of power had corrupted their ideals, turning their sacred mission into a reckless gamble. And when the shadows emerged, they found fertile ground in the cracks of fear and doubt that had formed within the Luminari's collective psyche. This revelation struck a chord with Dr. Voss. Humanity, too, stood on the precipice of such ambition. With advancements in quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and interstellar exploration, Earth was poised to follow in the footsteps of the Luminari. Would they learn from this cautionary tale, or repeat the same mistakes? The journey back to Earth gave the crew time to reflect on their discoveries. Data collected from Arinder painted a complex picture of a civilization that had thrived on harmony, until it didn't. The Luminaries' achievements were unparalleled, yet their undoing stemmed from a failure to recognize the interconnectedness of all things. They had treated the cosmos as a resource to be exploited rather than a partner to be respected. This realization sparked heated debates among the researchers. Some argued that the Luminari story was a condemnation of progress itself, proof that pushing boundaries inevitably led to destruction. Others countered that the fault lay not in the pursuit of knowledge, but in how it was wielded. Progress, they insisted, could coexist with responsibility if guided by wisdom and humility. Dr. Voss found herself torn between these perspectives. On one hand, the horrors she had witnessed, the shadows, the chaos, the annihilation of an entire civilization, made her question whether humanity was ready for the responsibilities that came with discovery. On the other hand, she couldn't deny the beauty and brilliance of the Luminaries' creations. Their art, their architecture, their rituals, all spoke of a people capable of profound creativity and compassion. Perhaps the lesson wasn't to abandon progress, but to approach it with reverence. This fragile balance became the central theme of their report to Earth's scientific community. When they finally returned home, they presented their findings not as a triumph, but as a warning. The artifacts may have been silenced, but their stories endured, and with them, the responsibility to heed their lessons. News of the expedition spread quickly, igniting both fascination and controversy. While some hailed the team as heroes for averting a potential galactic catastrophe, others accused them of destroying invaluable evidence. Ethical debates raged over whether the activation of the Spire had been justified, given the irreversible damage it caused. Meanwhile, Dr. Voss became increasingly preoccupied with a chilling possibility. What if the shadows hadn't been confined to Arinder? During her lucid dreams, she had glimpsed fragments of the Luminaries' exodus, visions of ships fleeing into the void, carrying not just survivors, but traces of the entity that had consumed their world. If even a fraction of the shadows had escaped, they could be drifting through space, waiting for another opportunity to take root. To investigate this theory, she collaborated with astrophysicists and xenobiologists, analyzing data from deep space probes and historical records of unexplained phenomena. Patterns began to emerge: planets with inexplicable mass extinctions, civilizations that vanished without a trace, and regions of space marked by unusual energy fluctuations. Could these anomalies be linked to the shadows? Her research gained traction, prompting the formation of a task force dedicated to monitoring potential threats. Advanced sensors were deployed across key sectors of the galaxy, designed to detect signs of dimensional rifts or anomalous energy signatures. For the first time in human history, Earth took proactive steps to safeguard not only its own future, but the futures of countless worlds. Yet despite these efforts, Dr. Voss couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. The shadows were patient, biding their time until conditions were right for their return. And when they did, humanity might not be so fortunate. In the years following the Arinder expedition, humanity underwent a profound shift in perspective. The story of the Luminaries served as a catalyst for change, inspiring a new era of cooperation and accountability. Nations set aside their differences to establish the Galactic Preservation Initiative, GPI, an organization tasked with protecting ancient sites and preventing the misuse of alien technologies. Exploration missions adopted stricter protocols, prioritizing cultural preservation over resource extraction. Teams trained in xenolinguistics, anthropology, and ethics worked alongside engineers and scientists, ensuring that encounters with extraterrestrial civilizations were handled with care and respect. Even private corporations, once driven solely by profit, began incorporating sustainability into their operations, recognizing the long-term value of preserving cosmic heritage. Dr. Voss played a pivotal role in shaping this movement. Her insights into the Luminaries' downfall informed policies aimed at preventing similar tragedies. She advocated for transparency, urging governments and institutions to share knowledge freely rather than hoard it. "We are stewards of the stars," she often said during lectures and interviews. "Our duty is not to conquer, but to understand." Her words resonated deeply, sparking a cultural renaissance that celebrated curiosity and collaboration. Museums dedicated to interstellar history sprang up across the globe, showcasing artifacts recovered from Arinder and other archaeological sites. Schools integrated lessons on cosmic ethics, teaching children to view themselves as part of a larger tapestry rather than isolated beings. But beneath this optimism lurked a sobering reality. The shadows might still exist, lurking in the vastness of space. Humanity's newfound unity was fragile, held together by the shared fear of what might come next. Dr. Voss knew better than anyone that vigilance was paramount. The guardianship of the cosmos was not a title to be taken lightly. It was a burden borne by those who dared to look beyond the horizon. Decades passed, and the memory of Arinder faded into legend. Textbooks recounted the tale of the vanished civilization, framing it as a cautionary fable about the dangers of unchecked ambition. Yet for those who had lived through the events firsthand, the story remained vivid, a haunting reminder of humanity's capacity for both brilliance and folly. Dr. Alara Voss, now an elder stateswoman of science, spent her twilight years reflecting on the choices that had defined her career. She had walked among the ruins of a dead world, touched the remnants of a forgotten people, and stared into the abyss of their creation. In doing so, she had uncovered truths that transcended time and space, truths that would shape the destiny of countless generations. Though the shadows never returned, at least not openly, their influence lingered in subtle ways. Artifacts discovered on distant planets bore faint resemblances to those of Arinder, hinting at connections between civilizations separated by millennia. Murals depicting shadowy figures appeared in unexpected places, raising questions about whether the Luminaries' legacy extended further than anyone realized. For Dr. Voss, the greatest reward was knowing that humanity had heeded the warning. The Galactic Preservation Initiative continued to thrive, its members committed to safeguarding the mysteries of the universe while honoring those who had come before. New technologies were developed with caution, balancing innovation with respect for the unknown. As she gazed at the stars one final night, Dr. Voss felt a profound sense of peace. The Luminaries' light had dimmed, but their shadow had illuminated a path forward. In their absence, humanity had learned to walk with humility, to embrace the unknown not as a challenge to overcome, but as a mystery to cherish. And so, as the cosmos turned and the ages unfolded, the tale of Arinder endured, a story of light and shadow, triumph and tragedy, woven into the eternal dance of existence. Subscribe now to explore more mysteries of the universe and join us on our quest to uncover the secrets hidden among the stars.